Chapter 009 Negotiations Point 3. Read auxiliary chapter world info before starting the story. Discord. Web links. Pat. In 5 chapters ahead Keanu_Eugene. Chapter start. Hero. La couldn't quite wrap his mind around the absurdity and stupidity of that idea. You want me to go to UA and become a hero? Precisely, Nezu nods enthusiastically, starting next year, this school year. Let's just say things aren't right just yet. Why not just get me a pro hero license now so I can start working off their sentence? La asks, you know I'm already more capable than most heroes in Japan, just let me get to it. Unfortunately the Japanese constitution and hero regulations forbid that, plus you're only 15, La says. Exactly, although the truth was that Nezu wanted to force La into a hero-centric environment alongside other young heroes for as long as possible, hoping that they rub off on him, but he would never say that. And besides, if you are as good as you think then graduating UA shouldn't be an issue for you. It won't be, La declares, but it is a waste of time. Nezu chuckles, you'll find that every year there are exceptional prodigies, I'm sure you'll be able to find worthy competition, in fact, I guarantee you will. I doubt that, La says. But obviously you won't budge on this term, right? Right. Sigh. So I heal your friend, attend UA, and how much can I get their sentence reduced? If you perform well enough it could be entirely, La perks up at that. But we can discuss that at your graduation, and every year afterward. Until then they will remain exactly where they are. And they won't be executed before that. I know that super high priority people like my parents are kept isolated, I need some guarantee that this isn't all for nothing, La says. You have my word, so long as you uphold your part of the contract, I will uphold mine, Nezu nods. La sighs, Mom taught me how sacred contracts are, contracts and my family are all that matter to me, I never agree to a contract I can't fulfill, and I never break a contract. I also don't renegotiate the terms of any contract I agree to, even if the job turns out to be a lot tougher than expected, it's on me to do the research after all. That's good, a strong sense of family and honor, even if the work you did was less than clean, I can respect your work ethic and how professional you kept yourself, Nezu says. I'm fully aware of how the world views us, La sits back in his chair and stares at Nezu for a long while, then he sighs, then speaks. Before I agree to anything, I've got some specific terms, he looks to the mirror, as if he could see Tsukauchi standing there. I need to discuss them with you, only you. I see, Nezu narrows his eyes slightly. And I can trust that you won't try anything harmful or deceitful when I order him to leave. Of course I won't, I just want as few people as possible to know my business. Detective. Nezu asks. He's not lying, Tsukauchi says through the earpiece, but that doesn't mean I'm comfortable with this. Leave as detective, Nezu says. I trust him. After La senses Tsukauchi leaving he nods to Nezu. The mouse bear removes his earpiece and sets it down on the table, turning it off. Alright, what are these terms you want to discuss? Nezu asks. My face, and information about my family. The police and government weren't able to recover anything at all. All documents were burned in the fire your father started, all systems were wiped clean, they can't even find the legal names you three were operating under, La. Nezu says. La narrows his eyes at that, I'm guessing you don't include yourself in police or government. I'm an educator and consultant, Nezu says. With the way you three operate I fully expected you to be concerned about this, when I realized I needed you I assumed it would give me good bargaining power, which it clearly does. Does anyone else know? La asks. No, Nezu doesn't hesitate to answer, having La all figured out by now he knew he was safe, after all, he's the only hope La has of saving his parents. And his parents are most important to him, followed closely by his ego. Then let's keep it that way, La says. What do you mean? If you could wave your hand and make a full pardon appear, I'm assuming you can make an ID and medical license or two appear, right? If I wanted to, of course, Nezu was very intrigued by this suggestion. What do you have in mind? I don't want my face being a hero, especially not at UA. Putting my face and quirk in the spotlight is just inviting villains to pay my family a visit in the future, when I start my own family specifically. I see, Nezu strokes his chin, most people don't consider that since being a hero means being a celebrity. Most people are morons who don't think a step past themselves, especially teenagers, La says, a new harshness in his tone. You disapprove of that? Obviously, La scoffs. I think they're selfish, arrogant, careless, and lack any sense of accountability if anything does happen. It's disgusting. Can't expect villains to follow the rules, so the last thing I want is to head back home from patrol and find my house turned to ash while my family was inside. Nezu taps his chin, so every thought goes into protecting his future or current family. He thinks to himself. Understandable, I can have new identification created for your personal and hero use, including a mask. Perfect. And about the medical licenses, I'd have to review some of the medical notes in your father's files, but from what I saw on the drive here, I don't think a medical license for each identity is beyond reason. Prodigies exist, more so than ever since the advent of quirks. Good, Law says. I just need my hero and personal life as separate as possible, that's very important to me. So then we have an agreement? Nezu asks. On the day of the surgery, or whatever it is your friend needs, if you've got everything by then, yeah, I'll play hero for you, anything to fix what I did. What you did? Nezu was suddenly very curious by this choice of words. Sigh, I guess it doesn't really matter since you have all the dirt on me, Law shrugs. I chose that job, first one I've ever picked, and it turned out to be a trap. I fucked us. Nezu shakes his head, realizing that they'd both been so focused on the future that they never even discussed what happened. Deciding to take a risk, he tells the truth. It wasn't your fault, Nezu says, causing Law's eyes to snap to him. There have been teams tracking her for nearly 2 decades, since before you were born. We finally had enough info to narrow down her pattern. For the past year, all her jobs have been tracked, and some were even provided by us to get rid of certain undesirable people, to let the bait sink in. What? Law was amazed that they never noticed, but not completely surprised since Nezu's intellect is beyond even a complex supercomputer, many of which he personally designs and sells to major governments. Any job of the 36 she would have chosen would have been the same trap. She taught you well, she always chose the perfect job, we just figured out how to appear like the perfect job. So if you're going to be mad at anyone, to hate anyone, it should be me, Nezu says. Law doesn't even hesitate to slouch down in his chair and shake his head. No, you did your job well, I'm the one who failed. I fucked up so badly that I destroyed my family, maybe got them killed, and I'm guessing all our accounts are gone too. Nezu nods. Fuck, Law rubs a hand down his face. The only person to blame is me, they trained me to be my best self. I've trained so hard to be perfect, and I ruined everything. I saw her get hurt and I didn't even think to check for feathers, this is all on me. Responsibility and accountability, right, that's why I'm the only one who I should hate for this. Nezu sighs, do you have a safe house remaining? Of course, all our assets weren't digital, just 90%. Good, I'm sure you want some time to process this. Nezu takes one of the documents out from his stack and slides it over, face down. This is the only one I printed, the other personal files are here. He places a phone on the table. And a tracker I can't get rid of. Naturally, Nezu says, gesturing to the phone. But from what I can tell, you and I will work very well together, be ready for my call, Law. Thank you, Law says, suddenly feeling very tired as he feels the meeting ending. The adrenaline and anxiety cocktail that was keeping him going is finally wearing off. I'll contact you when I have everything ready. Nezu hops off his chair, takes the remaining documents, including the unsigned contract, and begins walking to the door. You can get yourself out of here, right? He asks playfully. I'll be fine, Principal. Law groans at the word, already knowing this was going to be a long journey. With that, Nezu nods and exits the room, shutting the door behind him. Law takes a deep breath, feeling exhaustion seeping into his bones. Fuck me. He groans, taking the picture from the table as well as the phone. Shambles. He disappears, swapping places with a few raindrops from outside. End chapter. Pat. Re in 5 chapters ahead. Keanu_Eugene. 59 comments 0 vote. Chapter 010 The Plan. Read auxiliary chapter world info before starting the story. Discord. Web links. Pat. Re in 5 chapters ahead. Keanu_Eugene. Chapter start. Law stands in the shower, warm water flowing down his body, watching blood and water rush past his feet and rush down the drain. He sighs, feeling his bones ache, the stress and constant worry of his body slowly fading away under the water. After a short shower, he makes sure to get the dried blood out of his hair before drying off and stepping out of the glass shower. Looking at himself in the bathroom mirror, palms flat on the sink, he can see the exhaustion in his own white blue eyes. His hair was short and messy, with not a single scar or scratch on his muscular but lean body. He cracks a smile, the chiseled features of his face giving a wolfish, predatory appearance. Not a scratch on me. He lifts a hand and feels his neck. Along with where the feathers had burrowed through his legs, they were perfectly healed, with no evidence of ever being injured. Hawks, number 3 hero, Law scoffs and begins walking toward the bedroom. What a fucking joke, couldn't even last a minute with me in a real fight. Entering the bedroom, he walks toward the bed, the simple and small one-bedroom apartment, one his family had hidden away just outside of Tokyo that was made for times like this. In case they were ever fully compromised, with no access to their accounts or contacts, all alone with a bag of clothes and cash. Located on the 3rd floor of this 5-story building, it provides no real security, but nobody would look for him here. He gets dressed in a pair of black sweatpants, leaving his shirt off as he takes out a laptop from his duffel bag. Sitting against the backboard of the bed with the laptop on his lap and the bag beside him, he takes another look through the phone Nezu gave him, the camera already torn out. One contact in my family files, he says while scrolling through the few pictures he had. Only a couple dozen pictures of them on the rare outings over the years. Looking past his feet, he sees the full body length mirror not far away. He scowls at himself, then begins typing on the laptop. Shit. He mutters. Reports of Arsenal and the Heart Thief being captured by Hawks are already on news websites. He checks international news sites, and only sees more of the same. 2 international villains brought down by a young top-rated hero in Japan. They couldn't get the stories out fast enough. No real names, or faces, or extra information. Just a basic headline, and apparently Arsenal killed 3 heroes in the raid. Law shakes his head. Nezu really did pull all the strings to make this happen. Law considers Nezu's position once more, the most influential person on the planet outside of world leaders, he thinks aloud. If I were Nezu, I designed defense systems and infrastructure for countries and people across the world. I built supercomputers that are nearly comparable to my own brain. I contributed more to hero society and the education of heroes than anyone else in history. I poured almost all of my money into helping heroes across the globe. Law sets the computer aside and brings up one of his knees, resting his arm on it. If I'm Nezu, I can lock anyone away, or get anyone out, after the public forgets them, of course. Law nods to himself. If he keeps his word, this will be easy, but how do I make sure he doesn't stab me in the back? I'm just another hero-killing villain to him. Law holds his head for a minute, racking his brain trying to think of a solution. Never break a contract, he says to himself. So I can't hold the patient hostage. I don't alter contracts, he groans. So I can't renegotiate if it changes. That means I'm in this for at least 4 years until I graduate. He moves the laptop aside and leans forward. 4 damn years. He rummages around in the duffel bag and fishes out the picture Nezu brought him. Taking out the picture, he gently passes a hand over the paper, as if trying to feel that familiar warmth from it. A picture of them on what looks to be an isolated beach area, him being only 9 years old in the photo. Sitting beside his surfboard with both his parents beside him, their board stood behind them. A popsicle in his hand just like them, all happily enjoying a summer day together. He can't help but smile, feeling sadness beginning to take over, tears almost ready to begin flowing down his face. As he feels the damn about the burst, however. Are you fucking crying? His own disgusted voice ridicules him. Law's eyes lazily drift up to look at the mirror, still sitting on the bed, leaning against the backboard, yet his reflection is standing in the mirror, pacing side to side in the room. It stops, and stares directly at him. What the fuck is wrong with you? It asks, shaking its head in disapproval. We aren't some weak sniveling pussy who cries about his problems. We don't waste our time in our own head thinking in circles like some useless impotent fuck. We get active and go solve the problem. Law takes a deep breath, and the dam is reinforced, suddenly feeling much calmer and more steady. That's right, the reflection nods. None of that crap, we were raised and trained to be perfect. We can solve this. I know what you have to do. The reflection points at him. That means you know exactly what you have to do. Law sighs, closes his eyes, and leans his head against the backboard, releasing a frustrated and annoyed groan. I know, it'll suck, but we've gotta do this. Nezu wants a hero, so we'll give him a fucking superhero. Someone Japan suddenly can't live without because we're just that much better than the cape and spandex morons. The reflection opens its arms wide as if a crowd was cheering for him. We'll have them begging us, all those useless, nameless, faceless, pathetic, stupid, fucks. All those damn ants that can't fend for themselves or crawl themselves out of a burning building without some retard in spandex and a cape coming to hold their hand. We'll have them groveling at our feet, where they're meant to be. They'll want to build a monument to the sky with our name on it, and do you know why? Law nods, a smirk growing on his lips. That's right, the reflection chuckles, because we're just better than all those morons playing the hero-villain game. Better quirk, better training, better in every way. They're trying to chase our backs, so desperate to catch up while running with no legs, while we're on the horizon, and once everyone sees how much better we are, they'll understand that they need us, and we don't need them. La smiles at that. The reflection nods, and they will give us whatever we want. They'll give us whoever we want back. A serious look dominates La's face as his eyes harden, brows furrowed. That's right, the reflection says, standing proud to look at La, who was still sitting on the bed. Once they see how superior we are, our family will be back together again, our mistake will be fixed. We destroyed our family, we made the mistake, and this is how we fix it, even if it kills us. La nods. And when we're all back together, we'll make sure they never have to worry about a thing again. The reflection gives him a sad smile. We owe them that much, it's the least we could do. La runs a hand through his hair at the thought of that. Hey, the reflection says in a soothing voice, everyone wants a miracle, and that's exactly what we are. People all around the world will be dropping to their knees to suck us off, we just need to make the most of it, and we've got a whole year to do it before we have to go to that fucking circus Nezu runs. La takes a deep breath and then picks up the phone. That's right, the reflection says. Call Nezu and tell him what we need, he wants us to be a hero. We'll be a super fucking hero, so good that everyone else looks like the trash they are, and when everyone sees our value, when they all need us, they see that we're a god, that we're above them, when we show them. Yeah, when we've done that. La smiles broadly, and a slight chuckle escapes his lips, then we can do whatever we want. End chapter. Pat. Re in 5 chapters ahead Keanu_Eugene. 0_0. 79 comments 0 vote. Chapter 011 Horizon. Read auxiliary chapter world info before starting the story. Discord. Web links. Pat. Re in 5 chapters ahead Keanu_Eugene. Chapter start. -4 days after meeting Nezu. Sitting on the couch of his condo, La is wearing simple shorts and a t-shirt, all black. A glass of scotch in his hand as he scrolls through a list of hotels in Switzerland. Room. Taking a sip of the drink, he enjoys the familiar taste of it, placing the glass down on the coffee table as he drops his phone. Tact. It hovers in place while he refills his glass with scotch. Refilling his glass, he leans back into the couch and grabs the phone out of the air. Room. This place looks about right, he says, finding a reasonably priced hotel in Bern that suits his purposes. Losing access to all his family money truly hurt, and now he only has the cash they stored at this safe house. Just after making his reservation, the phone begins to ring. Hello. Hi there, I'm outside, Nezu's friendly voice answers back. On the sidewalk. La asks while opening a room, reaching from his location all the way down to the other side of the street. Yes, I'm out front. Holding it. Yes. Nezu says a bit nervously, I'm sitting in my car. Scan. La gets a full 3D map of the area, focusing on finding Nezu, sensing him in an armored SUV out front with his driver, a large metal briefcase in his arms as he sits in the back, phone raised to his ear. Shambles. La tosses an ice cube to the couch opposite him, and just before it hits the couch it's swapped with Nezu, briefcase, and phone in hands. HNGH, Nezu grunts as he falls from almost an inch above his new seat, looking up to frown at La, a little warning next time. He hangs up the phone and texts his driver. Sure thing, La says. Is everything ready? I wouldn't have called if it wasn't, Nezu says. Will you be able to operate here? If not, I have a room reserved at a private facility. Here will be fine, the bedroom is ready, La shrugs. I see. Nezu silently looks around for a moment, taking in the simple apartment before noticing La drinking alcohol. You're 15, you shouldn't be drinking. It's been a rough week, La shrugs. Don't worry, it doesn't actually do anything. Want a drink? Do you have tea? La gestures to the kitchen, feel free to do as you wish, I'd like to check out my gear. He nods toward the briefcase. Enjoy, Nezu says excitedly as he hops down from the couch and walks off toward the kitchen. As Nezu walks away, La gets up and places the briefcase on the coffee table before returning to his own seat. At the front of the metal case was a black smiley face with checkered teeth, large sold eyes, and a dot nose, 6 spokes protruding out of it with pieces of another broken concentric circle attached to them. You got the trademark for me? La asks. Of course, Nezu's voice calls out from the kitchen, his body hidden on the other side of the counter. Horizon, Miracle Solutions Limited. That smiley face is a strange logo, but it's what you wanted. My dad's was hearts, La says. Mom's was gears, this is mine. Any all-might inspiration? Nezu asks cheekily from the kitchen. Yes and no, I figured people are only gonna see my back when I leave them in the dust, so it should at least be smiling. La chuckles darkly and Nezu just shakes his head. You know you could have just said you wanted to heal people with a smile. I rather not lie. La finally opens the case. Staring back at him is a sleek visor, made of a super tough polymer, black with 2 blue eyes and white on both sides. Simple but mysterious and intimidating, exactly what he wanted. Picking it up he gives it a once-over, turning it at every angle and feeling it with his hands, smooth and cool. Looking underneath he sees blue circuits flowing within, entirely on the area at the back of the head. Anything I should know about this? He asks while putting it on. The moment it's on he feels it tighten slightly, just enough to be perfectly comfortable. He also feels the base of the helmet extend all around. A hidden lip extends downward at the front and completely blocks his mouth, and he feels something like fabric reach down his chin. That feels weird, he says, his voice suddenly carrying a slight mechanical edge to it. But it doesn't feel like I'm wearing a helmet. Doesn't really look like it either. He raises a hand to see if he could notice any visual change, but getting up to look into a nearby wall mirror, while the face of his helmet was still black with 2 simple blue eyes, from the inside the world was crystal clear. Perfectly crafted one-way vision. Raising his head he looks under his chin, noticing the base of the helmet extend as if it tried to crawl down his neck. Can't even feel it, and it doesn't bother my jaw at all when I talk. Obviously not, Nezu says before taking a sip of his tea, now sitting on the couch. Power loader and I designed it personally, as well as your new sword, but that will remain at UA until you officially enroll. You can't take it off campus without a provisional license. I see. La walks back over to the case and inspects the other items. Finding a set of dark black socks, long pants, gloves, and a long-sleeved shirt. 3 of each. Looking inside them he sees that the outside is black but the inside is white, with the shirt having his logo in blue on the black side, and also in blue on the white side, as he requested. Double-sided. You asked for a white with the blue logo, but this was a more functional idea, plus the fabric comes in black so this was also faster. All 3 body gloves are the same, and they become active when fully connected, that includes the visor, Nezu says. Fully active. Try it on. Room. La picks up each piece and gives it a quick scan, then shifts his gaze toward Nezu. I can't see your face to know what you're thinking, Nezu says, staring at the blank faceplate. I'll have to remember that, but trackers, really? Nezu shrugs. It was a good idea at the time, and I figured you wouldn't have been able to find them. La just sighs and grabs each shirt, focusing on the trackers and then looking at his glass of scotch, focusing on the condensation at the base of the glass. Shambles. 3 small black objects, shaped like grains of rice, but 1/3 of the size, are swapped for drops of water. Incredible, Nezu mutters in awe. How were you able to find and isolate them so easily? I'll explain when the others get here. Do I need to worry about a tracker built into the visor, or programmed into it? La asks. No, there wasn't any space for a tracker, and the only software is so you can use it as a wireless headset for your phone for better privacy, alongside the temperature control you requested. Good, I'll be taking your word for it, and thanks for not making the voice too mechanical. All I did was program the fabric, Power Loader did everything else. He's our resident support item genius after all, Nezu gloats, always happy to brag about his staff. La begins putting on the gloves and socks, flipping them inside out so the white side was showing. Speaking of UA, shouldn't you be there since the school year just started? Is just about to start. It began yesterday, but I don't really have much to do this year since one of the first-year classes got expelled from the hero course. What do you mean a class got expelled? La asks, his slightly mechanical voice clearly surprised. We have a certain strict teacher that is very harsh with what he expects of heroes. He put them all into the general studies department directly afterward. Sounds like a dick, La says. He means well, his ways are just a bit cold at times, but he will be your homeroom teacher next year. His quirk may be needed to help guide you, Nezu says. You mean to stop me from putting people in the ground? That's one way to put it. What's his quirk? Because it'll some serious magic to stop me, La says as he finishes with the socks and gloves. Standing up he holds the pants and shirt, studying them for a moment. His quirk can temporarily erase other quirks, Nezu says. Shambles, La's pants and shirt swap for the parts of the body glove, now wearing the visor with his entire body covered in white fabric as the room closes, retracting into himself. Shambles. That's what you call the warping? Nezu asks curiously. La just turns toward him, allowing the blank visor to stare at Nezu for a moment. So Eraserhead huh? He looks at his body curiously, feeling the gaps between the separate pieces somehow being filled, as if the fabric itself was reaching out to the other parts and connecting. He walks over to the mirror and barely catches the tail end of the process, the turtleneck portion of his body glove reaching up to connect with his visor perfectly. That's creepy. Somewhat yes, but the smart fabric is needed to regulate temperature, which is a necessity for how long you plan to spend in that persona, Nezu explains. And you looked into a staff. Always best practice to scope out a site before you enter. Fair enough. I can feel it cooling me down already. He notices a small thermostat appearing inside his visor before it disappears. Body temperature gauge. Precisely, as expected this equipment is purely for comfort, so don't try to fight fire or ice user with this, it's meant to keep you cool on a warm day or warm on a cold day, nothing more. You'll still need a coat in the winter or ice cream in the summer. It'll do, thanks. Now for the really important parts, he takes his seat back on the couch and pulls the case closer. Reaching into a small compartment to remove some documents. Looking at the first set of documents, passport, birth certificate, ID, driver's license, medical license, all for his real identity of La Matani. Wow, La is genuinely surprised. I expected just the basics honestly, medical license and even a driver's license. Nezu shrugs, the doctors at Central Hospital put some of your more miraculous cases into a simulator after I gave them the relevant files. None of those people should have survived, they ever offered you a job. With that plus my own research, a medical license seemed earned. At 15, I know that since QUIRKs shook up the world there have been prodigies in a lot of things, so exceptions are made, but never figured you would have gone for it. Your medical skills are peerless, and you aren't using them for evil anymore, so it's fine. The fact that your QUIRK is a healing type made it very easy to get. Makes sense. The driver's license was a bit more difficult honestly, getting you a license to drive any class of road vehicle in Japan. At 15, let's just say I had to get creative with the computers. But it still only took me a few minutes. I don't like public transport, so thanks, especially since if things go as planned I should be able to afford some nice cars soon. Sooner than you think, you'll get all the information when you get there in person, but you'll certainly be able to get whatever toy you want. La continues reading the documents until something catches his eye. La Matani, QUIRK, heal. Well, I couldn't put Hand of God since that would reveal you to be Horizon as well, Nezu says. I get that your QUIRK allows you to warp and heal, but that name is so pretentious, are you sure you don't want to change it? My dad chose it for me, and it's very accurate, so it stays, besides I can do more than just warp and heal. Really? You'll see eventually, La says. He puts away his documents and takes a look at his second set, Horizons. You have the body glove and visor listed as lifestyle support equipment, good, they can't legally have me remove or alter either then. Exactly, and even the picture is just that of your visor, be sure not to alter it. I know that much, Nezu. La continues looking through the documents, and he even has a driver's license for Horizon as well. I don't think Horizon is gonna have any cars, he'll probably have a driver. Unless I have a second house just for my cars as Horizon, since I won't be able to bring them home. Dual identity problems, I guess. Precisely why so many heroes just go public. Not worth it, he says sternly. Put my current and future family in danger. I'd rather deal with the dual identity bullshit forever. True, the media won't report it much, but villains tracking heroes to their homes isn't all that uncommon, not with people being so comfortable about showing their face. Exactly, I don't buy into the hero-centric media crap. I've been on the other side, I know how easy it is to track people down with just a face or QUIRK name, never putting my family in that kind of danger just to save some strangers. I certainly can't argue against that, but most people don't take things as extreme as you do, although they usually aren't in such extreme circumstances. I want Horizon and La Matani to be as different as possible, La says. One is the perfect pristine hero, and the other is a guy who looks like he belongs in a gang, tattoos and all. Nobody will ever connect them in person, just as you've made sure nobody can connect them digitally in Japan's system. True, but one thing. You don't have tattoos, Nezu points out. Not yet. You'd go that far to separate your identities? Nezu asks, not surprised but a bit concerned. No face tattoos, but yeah, I don't see why not. When I retire or if I'm just off duty, the last thing I want is people thinking I'm a hero and bothering me. Nezu chuckles, most people can't stop thinking about life as a hero, and you're more concerned about when you settle down and start a family. He nearly spills his drink as his chuckle devolves into a mad cackle. La just sighs and sits back, don't think anything else really matters honestly. Nezu catches his breath at this, I can certainly respect your view on th. Beep, beep, beep. Nezu's phone goes off, drawing their attention toward it. Nezu picks it up and looks at the message before turning to La, seems like your first patient is here. Dr. Horizon. End chapter. Pat. Re in 5 chapters ahead Keanu_Eugene. 57 comments 0 vote. Chapter 012 Toshinori Yagi. Read auxiliary chapter world info before starting the story. Discord. Web links. Pat. Re in 5 chapters ahead Keanu_Eugene. Chapter start. Knock knock knock. La and Nezu turn to look down the connection hallway from their seats in the living room. Right on time, La mutters, still not entirely used to the slightly mechanical nature of his voice through the visor. Getting up he walks down the hallway and in a few steps is at the front door. Opening it he's greeted by the sight of a 180 centimeters (5 feet 11) man in a beige trenchcoat, a suit kept below it. And standing behind this man is a 204 centimeters (6 feet 8) blonde man, with spiky hair with 2 bangs at the sides of his face. Blue sunken eyes and hollow cheeks, appearing emaciated, as if he was ready to fall over into a shallow grave. Both men stare back at Horizon, slightly surprised to be greeted by the black visor that only had 2 triangular blue eyes. A white body glove hiding every piece of skin that would have shown with his pair of black shorts and t-shirt. Come in, Horizon steps aside and gestures for them to enter, locking the door behind them. Both men gave him a nod as they pass by. But Horizon can't help noticing how the blonde man towered over his 180 centimeters (6 feet) self, along with the fact that his suit was a few sizes too large, hanging off his frame. Walking behind both men the trio joins Nezu in the living room. Now that we're all here, how about introductions? Nezu asks. Room. Horizon reaches out to the plain-looking man in the trench coat, I'm Horizon, the doctor. The man shakes his hand, Detective Naomasa Tsukauchi. After a firm handshake Tsukauchi steps back. Detective. As in the detective from when I met Nezu. Tsukauchi only nods and moves to take a seat. Next, the tall blonde man reaches out with a large hand. Horizon feels the man's hand like a vice around his fingers for a moment. Toshinori Yagi, it's a pleasure to meet you, doctor. Horizon's face tilts downward, shifting from looking up at the man to looking at his torso. Wow, so you must be my patient. He releases the man's hand. Don't worry Yagi, I can help you. Please call me Toshinori if you'd like, the man says as he moves to join Tsukauchi on the couch, leaving Nezu and Horizon on single seats. Yagi is shorter, Horizon moves to take his seat. I don't particularly care for naming traditions and formality, I always use the shorter easier to say name, he shrugs. Ah, that's fine as well, Yagi says. Horizon nods, then claps once to get their attention. So, now that the small talk is over, how much do these men know about me Nezu? Only the bare minimum, Nezu says, putting down his teacup. Toshinori only knows that you're a miracle doctor, Detective Tsukauchi knows the circumstances under our introduction, but your name, face, and everything else has been withheld, as well as the specifics of our deal, just as I promised. Good, Horizon reaches down to the table and picks up his glass. Oh. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen, the base of his visor retracts slightly so he can take a sip of his scotch. So. I assume you're the one I'll be operating on in a minute or two. He nods at Yagi. Yagi freezes, looking between Horizon and the glass of alcohol in his hand, then back at Horizon. You shouldn't drink before performing medical acts, he says. Actually, you shouldn't drink at all, aren't you a minor? And you shouldn't be alive with those injuries, but here we are, Horizon says. What? I can't have 1 or 2 drinks before performing a super invasive operation? Horizon asks, half jokingly. Yagi and Tsukauchi freeze while Nezu quietly giggles to himself. I'm kidding, alcohol doesn't work on me, I just like the taste, also, don't ever tell me what to do, Horizon says. Yagi looks at Tsukauchi while Horizon keeps talking, besides, you're already dying anyway, not like I could make it worse. As Horizon takes another sip the trio stared at him. Tsukauchi and Yagi were surprised by the casual manner in which he spoke about death, but Nezu wasn't surprised in the least. What do you mean? Yagi asked. Well, Horizon raises a hand to count on his fingers. 1. You've only got 1 lung and it's barely functioning. 2. Your stomach is the size of an apple and is also barely functioning. 3. Both your intestines are missing most of their length. 4. Your bone marrow doesn't have enough nutrients and can't process enough water to make blood. And 5. Your left kidney has already failed. None of them are surprised by the diagnosis, this was all that they'd known for years, but Yagi asked what they were all thinking. How do you know about all of that? When I shook your hands, Horizon says, placing his now empty glass on the table and his visor seals itself, voice becoming slightly mechanical once more. I did a full body scan of both of you, I can single out the obvious things with just a passing graze, but if I'm going to scan down to the cellular level one need a few seconds. That's why you didn't let go at first, Yagi says. And it's also how I know that the detective has some kind of ear quirk, unless those extra bones in there are for show, he turns to Tsukauchi. So, super hearing. Tsukauchi sighs, lie detection, and impressively, you've never lied in my presence. Horizon chuckles, I see why Nezu keeps you around, and yeah, lying is for people too weak or pathetic to handle the consequences of their actions, it's beneath me. Tsukauchi shakes his head, I don't know if I should be impressed or concerned that you genuinely believe that. Nezu laughs, causing everyone to look at him, well it's good to see everyone getting along well enough. Tsukauchi grumbles but they ignore it as Horizon speaks, so I assume you can't tell me what caused the injuries, right? So long as you don't share the information with anyone else, Yagi says. Doctor-client confidentiality, I'll take it to my grave. Yagi looks at Tsukauchi who nods, then he explains. I was attacked, rivet stabs, superpower, lighting surge, and a few other quirks, all at once. I see, a team of villains huh, Horizon says. Yagi nods along, not wanting to expose the truth of all for one. Well from the looks of it you've got, at best 8 years. That long. Yagi's eyes open wide. But the other doctors said that my injuries. That nobody can survive in my condition. How long ago did this happen? 4 years ago, Yagi says. I see, Horizon leans back and taps the chin of his visor. Well, you wouldn't have lasted even a few minutes if your quirk wasn't so abnormal. Nezu, Yagi, and Tsukauchi all sit up straight at that. What exactly do you mean? Nezu asks. His quirk is like nothing I've ever seen before, at least not outside of myself. Your quirk is like mine. No, not at all, your quirk is obviously a power type, the complete opposite of mine. But while mine allows me a sort of dominion over my mind and body like no other, yours provides energy at a cellular level. Your organs haven't been able to sustain you for years, but it's like your quirk has so much energy that it stretched your final few minutes into years. Assuming you never actively use your quirk, the energy it provides you can take you to 8 more years at best. That long, Yagi whispers in awe. But what if I do use it? He can't help but ask. I can't imagine a situation where you'd ever think that was a good idea, Horizon says. Every bit of energy you expend is directly taking time off your life, the time you could be spending with your family or friends. If you want those full 8 years then you should retire and try to take it easy. Everyone says that, but I can't do that, not yet, not until, Yagi stops himself, realizing what he was about to say. Not quite yet. Well it's your life, throw it away if you want, Horizon shrugs. But for the record, I don't appreciate people wasting my time, and me extending your life for you to throw it away is exactly that. You're lucky being your doctor is part of my contract. Thank you, Yagi bows respectfully. As he sits back up he then asks, how exactly can you help me? The best doctors in the world couldn't do anything. Yagi immediately panics and waves his hands about, not that I'm doubting your abilities, doctor. Horizon grumbles slightly then thinks for a moment, I won't be able to completely save you from death, only extend your life slightly. If I was the doctor on site when you were first injured I could have gotten you back into top form. But at the time I was only 11. You're 15. Yagi and Tsukauchi yell. Huh, I assumed you knew, Horizon looks at Nezu. I told you they don't know anything but the bare minimum, Nezu shrugs. Right, but I assumed you told them my age at least, Horizon sighs. But anyway, perfect training since I was 4 then manifesting a powerful mystery class quirk when I was 5. Mystery class. Yagi yells. Horizon revealed this about his quirk simply because the classification was on his ID. Plus constant training. Means I'm the miracle doctor of your dreams, at only 15, Horizon shrugs. And yeah, mystery class. A mystery class healing quirk? Yagi asks. Healing, warping, some other things too, Horizon shrugs. All that matters is that it'll let me operate on you. I'll be able to restructure your organs and some of your bone marrow while healing it, pushing cell regeneration as opposed to cell activation, which I assume Recovery Girl used a lot to keep you alive, right? Right, Nezu nods. Yeah, well, most heal quirks force cell activation, effectively healing you by cutting down your lifespan since cells can only divide so many times within a lifespan, and that's what it triggers. I'm able to use external energy to trigger cell regeneration, which is an unnatural process that doesn't cut into your lifespan. That paired with some of the other things I can do, I'll be able to get you from 8 years up to 15 years. Assuming you don't use up more energy than needed to survive, Horizon shrugs, as if it were such a casual matter. A living miracle, Nezu says, all while Yagi and Tsukauchi are staring in awe. I see why you chose that name for your company. Thank you. Yagi nearly doubles over as he bows, sincerely thankful for anything Horizon can do to help. Is there any way we could have saved him entirely? Nezu can't help but ask, and all eyes shift to Horizon once more. Yeah, organ transplants within a week or two of the injury. It's too late for any of that now. His quirk saturated the damaged tissue so much that if any foreign organs tried to attach, the energy it provides would overwhelm, reject, then destroy it. Horizon shrugs. I see, Yagi says. And are you ready to operate? He looks around the small apartment, unsure of what happens next. Yeah, I've got everything set up. Horizon stands up and begins walking away, waving his hand in the air. Just follow me, this should only take an hour or two at most. End chapter. Pat. In 5 chapters ahead. Keanu_Eugene. I update every weekday, so see ya Monday. 52 comments, 0 vote. Download the app for greater interaction. You can chat with me about my writing experience apart from the comments section. Keanu_Eugene. Download app now. Chapter 013 Doubts. Read auxiliary chapter world info before starting the story. Discord. Web links. Pat. In 5 chapters ahead. Keanu_Eugene. Chapter start. Retrieving a bottle of water from the fridge, Tsukauchi returns to his seat on the couch, anxiously waiting for All Might and Horizon to return, ready to act in case anything happens. Taking a sip from his water, he places it on the coffee table and leans back, glancing over at Nezu, who was happily reading something on his phone. How can you be so calm about this? He asks Nezu. About what? All of this. I know you have an intellect beyond human comprehension, as you say, because of your quirk, but isn't this a bit much even for you? Nezu puts down his phone to give Tsukauchi his full attention. You don't think we can trust Horizon? He has power, motive, and at the moment, since he has Toshi under the knife, leverage, Tsukauchi says. True, Nezu confirms. Thankfully he doesn't care about any of that. And you're sure of this? I already told you, I had him figured out from the moment I sent you that recording to verify. As powerful and capable as he is, his weaknesses are quite obvious, his family, and his obsessive need to upkeep any contract he agrees to, even if it turns out to be much more difficult than expected. He'd die before he breaks or renegotiates a contract, and all he wants is his family back. We can trust him so long as we don't betray his trust in us. In me. And what will Toshi think about you letting a serial assassin off the hook just so he can operate on him? You and I are a bit looser in situations like this, but you know he isn't, not if it's to save only his own life instead of others. He'll see all the good Horizon can do when he becomes a hero, Nezu says matter-of-factly. That should convince him that I made the right decision, plus, he's only a child still. As mature and experienced as he may be, he's young, without his parents whispering in his ear who knows what he'll become. Tsukauchi sighs, that's what I'm afraid of, we don't know what he'll become. But we know what he is now, this could go very badly, Nezu. Or we could have a new national power on our hands, Nezu says. Tsukauchi immediately realizes what Nezu is thinking. He takes a deep breath and tilts his head back to stare at the ceiling. Nezu, he pinches the bridge of his name. What is his quirk really? Hand of God. Tsukauchi's eyes shoot open and he stares at the bare mouse. What? What the hell does that even mean? No clue, Nezu shrugs. He refused to give me more than a name, didn't explain or list any abilities, but gave me the classification, mystery class. So you're taking his word for it that his quirk exceeds all logical and scientific comprehension. To be named mystery class, you realize only one person in history has ever gotten that classification, right? I know. And how is our government dealing with Horizon suddenly appearing in their system with that quirk? I've spoken to Pantu and Bozu about it, they won't bother us, Nezu assures him. And when America learns that they aren't the only people with a mystery class, that suddenly Start and Stripe may have competition. Obviously the requests will flood in for him to study and migrate to the States, but he'll stay here since that's his contract. Tsukauchi sighs, you seriously want to make this kid into the next All Might? No, he'll never be All Might. Nezu leans forward and takes a sip of his tea before he continues. A few days ago he contacted me, told me he wants to show everyone how useful he is. It's obvious what method of thinking he follows. And what might that be? Simply that it's better to be a necessity than to be liked. He will never be a symbol of peace like All Might, but he will be a dependable hero that Japan can lean on in the future, and that's enough, don't you think? Assuming he doesn't put a sword in your back, Tsukauchi grumbles in response. My quirk hasn't detected a single lie out of him, ever, but I just don't like this whole situation. A confirmed killer walking the streets like a hero, sitting in a classroom with people who want to be real heroes, I can't even put a word to how messed up it is. Nezu sighs, if people were incapable of change, especially people so young, then I would still be on my quest to eliminate all humans for what they did to me in that lab. He raises a hand absent-mindedly to touch his scar. I believe he can be a force for good, just like I am now. Tsukauchi relents, yeah. I suppose that's true. But I'm still not won over just yet, even if he does help Toshi. He's dangerous, Nezu, don't ever forget that. Healing and scanning aside, warping is a monstrous quirk in the hands of any enemy, and we know he's good at fighting with it. Only a few of those quirks exist in the world that we know of, and he's the only one proficient or actively using his. I know, all the more reason to finally have a hero with a warping quirk, don't you think? Yeah, I suppose. But what about that thing he did to Chrome, tore through his organs and brain without cracking his tungsten skin? Did he say anything about that ability? No, he refuses to speak on his quirk, says the information is too valuable to be in any system or the hands of anyone else. Of course he'd be paranoid, when considering his criminal life and history it makes sense. Nezu nods in agreement. If he had the attitude of a hero I would have pushed for him to get a full hero license immediately, already more capable than most pros. But as you know, he needs time among aspiring heroes so that he can see what it's really all about. It won't work unless he wants to be a hero on his own. If he's as smart as you say, then you realize he knows that's your plan, right? He does, he essentially confirmed as much. He also told me his plan to use his new medical license to build his brand, and I offered a way to help him. Build a brand? Horizon Miracle Solutions. Nezu waves his hands about as if it were a big reveal, only to earn a blank stare from Tsukauchi. What? I used my connections to get him access to some influential people, that way when he enters UA he won't be starting from zero in terms of name recognition. And it'll instantly put eyes on him, get him into more situations where he gets essentially forced to see how great heroes can be, and accelerates his growth because of it. You're using his plan and popularity to guide him to be more heroic. That's damn brilliant. Exactly, since it's the same as his own plan, nothing has to change, I've simply made it much, much more effective. But there is one thing I can't account for. What's that? His attitude. You've heard him speak, what do you think? Aside from the fact that he's an uncaring asshole. Tsukauchi asks, recalling how casual Horizon was about delivering life-changing news in a death sentence earlier. He recalls what Horizon said about liars and people who break contracts as well, and something clicked in his mind. He's a very hard judge. Of himself, right? He holds everyone to the same standards as himself and isn't shy about telling them when they're failing. My thoughts as well, Nezu nods along. He's also very direct and abrasive, downright vulgar to get his point across most directly, hates being told what to do, and will attack anyone who even mentions his parents in a bad light. Add the fact that he'll talk down to or ridicule anyone who doesn't meet the standards he has for himself, and I don't know what effect being at UA could have on him, much less being a full pro. A powder keg to blow up in our face or to take down villains, damn. Nezu nods along, I'm sure he will do great things for us. And Japan will finally have its own mystery class hero, with All Might stepping down, hopefully soon, we'll need it. -1 hour later. You've finished already? Tsukauchi asks, blatant concern in his voice as Horizon takes a seat opposite him. Yeah, it went exactly as I said, he's already getting dressed and should be out in a minute. Horizon leans back and takes a deep breath. Everything ready, Nezu? You can head to the airport immediately, everything is already set up and they're expecting you, and you'll be using my jet. Perfect. A few minutes later and Toshinori enters the living room, looking around and taking careful steps, trying to get used to the strange feeling in his body. Tsukauchi gets up and walks over to him, how are you feeling? You should sit down. Is everything alright? Toshinori laughs and pats his friend on the shoulder, I haven't felt this good in years, I can finally breathe properly. And, I'm hungry. I fixed your stomach, Horizon says, already scrolling on his phone. You went from having 8 years to having 15 years, don't waste them. I'm sending Nezu a list of vitamins for you to take daily, they should help, plus a new diet. Aside from that, you're all done here, he shrugs. I see, Toshinori says before turning to Horizon and bowing, completely doubling over. Thank you Dr. Horizon, I'll never forget what you've done for me today. Beneath his visor Horizon rolls his eyes, don't thank me, thank Nezu, I was just doing my job and sticking to my contract, no big deal. But still, thank you. Sigh, yeah, now if that's all can we please wrap this up, I've got a jet waiting for me. End chapter. Volume 1 is complete, onto Volume 2. Pat. Re and 5 chapters ahead Keanu_Eugene. 68 comments 0 vote. Chapter 014 The Miracle List. Discord. Web links. Pat. Re and 5 chapters ahead Keanu_Eugene. Chapter start. Sitting in the back of an armored SUV, Nezu's armored SUV, Horizon idly scrolls through various vacation spots around the world. He is dressed in a simple black suit to contrast his white body glove, visor, and a single black duffel bag at his side. He nods along to the music playing, using his visor like a wireless headset to the phone Nezu gave him. He feels the car come to a gentle stop and looks out the window. They'd already arrived at the airport, only a dozen meters away was Nezu's jet. A luxury 20 meters minus 65 feet white jet with a decal of Nezu at the side waving and smiling. Along with Nezu, written on the side is colorful letters. Horizon rolls his eyes as he grabs his bag and gets out. When I buy mine I'll make sure it doesn't look like a 5-year-old decorated it. He grumbles. Walking to the jet he sees 3 people standing outside at the base of the short staircase. A man, a woman, and a third person with a strange quirk. They almost appeared to be made of water, difficult to tell if they even had a gender. All wearing dress shirts and pants. As Horizon walks up the first man extends his hand, which Horizon shakes. I assume you're the captain, he nods to the man. That I am Doctor, the man gestures to the liquid person standing beside him, my co-pilot and our flight attendant, the weather is clear and we're all fueled. It should only be 7 hours to burn. Perfect, I'll be in your care, Horizon nods to the others. The woman reaches to carry his bag but he shakes his head, I'll take care of it. Oh, understood Doctor, she politely nods and gestures for him to walk up the stairs. He doesn't hesitate, but is sure to announce as he walks to the top, I'd rather you just call me Horizon. Doctor still feels a bit odd. At least that's what he said, but in truth, being called Doctor annoyed him to no end. In his eyes, anyone can become a doctor, but the only me is me. A few minutes later and Horizon is sitting stiffly in the comfy leather seat of the jet, a small table in front of him with a seat on the other side occupied by his bag. Looking out the window as the pilots position the jet for takeoff he anxiously taps his fingers on the table. As he sinks into his seat when they begin accelerating his tapping continues, quickly feeling his sense of absolute control being ripped away. He looks out the window to see Tokyo shrinking beneath them and less than a minute later it's far behind them. A few minutes after that and the view is filled with clouds. Before he realizes it the flight attendant is standing at his table, a pleasant smile on her face as she speaks to him. Would you perhaps like a refreshment to help you relax? She asks, with only good intentions. It was impossible not to see his constant tapping on the table. I'm fine, thank you, he politely refuses, trying to ignore the fact that they were already up to probably 1,000 miles per hour minus 1,600 kmph, as expected of a year 2112 luxury jet. Just call if you need anything, she gestures to one of the buttons built into the table and a few other places about the lounge area. I will, he says, dismissing her. Trying to distract himself he reaches across the table and takes out his laptop, connecting his visor and computer he starts playing some music, light lo-fi background music, and starts typing. I'll call it, the miracle list, yeah, he thinks aloud, another attempt to distract himself from his current location. Typing everything that I can heal is too long, so I'll focus on what I can't heal. Genetic deterioration. Genetic deformities. Some mental disorders too. His fingers move like lightning to compile the specifics of his arrangement. When I work for people do I want them talking? He thinks on it for a moment then shrugs. More chatter means more competition, that means better bids, and I can go from unknown to celebrity during the sports festival, get ahead of everyone else, he chuckles. I'll make it so that they can reveal anything they want but I can't, since I'm the doctor, special agreements for special scenarios of course. He sits back and looks at the document he made. Nearly 5 pages of specifics. Everything from what he provides to confidentiality to where he's willing to travel to meet with patients. And I should also tell them that I'll only be able to travel outside of Japan for the next 11 months, that gives me a month to settle back in Japan before UA. Doubt Nezu wants me ditching class and hero duties because I got a nice offer. He types some more, and before he knows it he's already had a few drinks and a full meal while working. Finishing up the last of his document, it now being a full 12 pages of very clear and specific requirements and services, he only has one more thing to do. Price, he mutters, leaning back into his seat to consider it very carefully. My clients are supposed to be the most wealthy people in the world, but I don't really have any sense of how to price things like this. The standard prices Dad used won't apply here for what I'm trying to do. These people see every bit of money they spend as a flex of their status. And if I'm too conservative with the price they'll think it's bullshit. Fuck. How do you put a price on time? Time with a loved one, time added to your own life. How? He spends a few minutes thinking about it before finally giving in, deciding that maybe some outside perspective would help. Pressing the button on the table once more, the flight attendant quickly arrives. As she's about to take the empty glass and plate away, he raises a hand to stop her. I'd actually like to ask you something, if that's all right with you. Yes sir, she nods. He gestures for her to take the seat opposite him, which she does, after moving his bag. How may I help you, sir? I'm trying to price my product, and I'm hitting a roadblock here. I was hoping you'd be able to give some perspective. Oh, of course, sir, she smiles and nods, excited at the idea of a medical prodigy asking her opinion. My product is time, how much would you pay for that? She freezes, then looks confused, then shakes her head and blinks a few times. Do you mean? Like rewinding time? No, that wouldn't solve anything. Horizon scoffs at the idea. Rewinding time wouldn't necessarily heal the things I can, I'm talking about a miracle cure. How much would you pay for something that would give you more time in your life, or with the people you care about, that kind of time? Her eyes widen at the idea, suddenly realizing she was sitting opposite something humans have been searching for since the beginning of time, a miracle elixir. As he waits patiently, she scrunched her face, trying to imagine all the sick people she wished would get better. How much she'd pay to have her parents in perfect health, to heal her kids if something terrible happened. Eventually, she releases a tired sigh, and gives an apologetic look. I'm sorry sir, but I think all lives are equally invaluable, none can be summed up for any amount of money. I'd give any and everything I have for what you're describing, she nods. All lives equal and precious. He almost laughs at the idea, a certain lightness in his slightly mechanical voice. Well, that's a stupid idea, he scoffs. But I suppose most people view things like that everyone is equal and should be saved instead of measured by the value and services they can provide. Certainly makes pricing this a lot harder. She keeps a polite expression, suppressing her disgust at his words and the urge to launch into a tirade or simply yell at his blatant disregard for human lives. Giving a polite bow, she stands up. I'm sorry I couldn't be of any help to you sir, she says while clearing the dishes from the table. On the contrary, you told me everything I needed, thank you, he nods and begins typing once more. As she walks away, he continues speaking to himself, I don't need to put a price on anything. All I do is set the minimum and let them decide. How much they care and how much money they have will dictate how high the bids go, just need to set a minimum. After a few more minutes of typing a page of rules for the bidding, he saves the document once more. Minimum bid of 10 million United States dollars, gifts can be added but the cash bid dictates the initial ranking. Perfect. He saves it one last time, then hits send, almost instantly receiving a confirmation from the man he was on the way to meet. Checking the time, Horizon closes the laptop and leans back into his seat, seeing rolling clouds outside his window, Asia 38 kilometers below him. The view itself helped him relax and drift off to sleep. Only a few more hours until they arrived at Bern, and sleeping was the best way for him to not be anxious the entire flight. End chapter. Pat. Re and 5 chapters ahead, Keanu_Eugene. 47 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 015, Swiss Vault. Discord. Web links. Pat. Re and 5 chapters ahead, Keanu_Eugene. Chapter start. As the plane descends to the runway, Horizon looks out the window at the mountainous Swiss landscape. Picturesque, somehow layered with the massive sprawling city of Bern, the capital of Switzerland. One of the only places Horizon has ever been that he can honestly say, perfectly blends traditional architecture and the modernity of 2114, it truly was a sight to behold. A winding river dividing the city, bridges built over it, appearing as if they were built hundreds of years ago, the style perfectly emulated but no older than he was. Skyscrapers reaching to the heavens as if trying to compete with the mountains in the distance, a fruitless effort as the snow-capped peaks give a sense of grandeur that no skyscraper could ever match. He can't help but smile beneath his mask, thankful that he'd never be able to forget this portrait-like view, with light snow falling upon the city. I could get used to this, he mutters as the plane touches down. A moment later the jet comes to a full stop, and Horizon gets up, bag already secured at his side, and makes his way to the exit ramp. He receives a stiff nod from the flight attendant before exiting the jet. Immediately greeted with the sight of a literal mountain only 200 meters away. Covered in trees and grass, but with a section carved into it at the side of the runway. Doors running parallel to the landing strip itself. But perhaps doors wasn't the right word at all. Wow, was all he could say. 2 massive tungsten gates. Each is 30 meters tall and together 50 meters wide. The Switzerland coat of arms painted in the middle of the otherwise black surface, a red shield with a white cross. Making it to the end of the ramp, his gaze finally drops, seeing all the fortified buildings along the runway and especially toward the gate. He takes a moment to appreciate no longer being on the plane. He had no fear of flying it itself. But moving at nearly 500 meters per second meant his quirk was damn near useless. The travel speed would rip him out of his room before he could give any real commands. It's the only time he has no true control of his world. Casting that thought aside, he focuses back on the view around him. The light snow falls around him as he turns to see 2 small carts, one with a driver already in the seat and a slim blonde man standing beside it. The other driver approaches and politely takes his bag, after some hesitation on Horizon's part. I see you're awestruck by the magnificence of my nation, the blonde man says in clearly rusty Japanese, this thick accent somewhat slurring the words. He walks up and reaches out to shake Horizon's hand. I speak your languages, sir. We may speak normally, Horizon says while shaking his hand, oddly fluent Swiss German leaving his mouth. And yes, this country is breathtaking. The man smiles and takes a step away, turning to gesture at the mountain fortress. She truly is one of a kind, he says, returning to his usual Swiss German. And it seems I stayed awake refreshing my Japanese for nothing, yes. Horizon chuckles, my mother traveled a lot for work, she taught me that learning a language is always better than having a translator, more reliable. And secure. The man nods, a woman after my own heart, please allow me to properly introduce myself. I am Locke, I control this unique establishment, he gestures to the entire area around them. Looking down the runway, Horizon couldn't see the end, he also couldn't see barriers in any direction aside from the mountain itself. It certainly is a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Mr. Locke, I am Horizon. And please, don't call me, Doctor, it's already gotten old for me, he chuckles. I'll be sure to keep that in mind. Now, shall we? He gestures to the leading cart and Horizon begins walking toward it. So, Mr. Horizon. Horizon is fine, no need for titles with me. Ah, then I suppose you may simply call me Locke. They arrive at the cart and both take their seats. So, what has Mr. Nezu told you about us? Almost nothing, Horizon says as the cart begins driving toward the gates. He said that you can facilitate my business, handle the bids and cash flow, as well as manage my assets. Locke chuckles, he truly spoils me, he knows how much I enjoy giving the breakdown and tour. Oh, then please, enlighten me on this mysterious place. This my new friend, is Swiss Vault, Locke says as they arrive at the gates. Unlike anything he expected, a portal opens a few meters before the gates for them to drive through. The border was angular, with each point appearing like a shining star, giving the sense that they drove into a constellation. The portal made it visible what was on the other side, a massive black and gold palace-like atrium. Ceilings 20 meters high, massive columns of black marble along the walls, guards standing posted. And a woman positioned above who was giving energy to the portals. The doors never open if not absolutely necessary, Locke says. She is our gatekeeper, warping quirks are among the rarest, only a handful exist, and we were fortunate enough to hire one. Truly incredible, Horizon admits, opening a perfect warp gate is something that anyone could be envious of and see the appeal in. A necessary measure to protect our assets, the cart comes to a stop as Locke nods toward gatekeeper. She closes her eyes and focuses, then a dagger appears to float above her, glowing bright white before staking the ground a few feet ahead of them. Another gate opens, this time leading to an office overlooking the runway itself. My office, Locke says, gesturing for Horizon to enter. I like your style, Locke, he says, entering before Locke, followed by the bag handler who rests his bag on a table in the office. Locke moves to take a seat at his desk and Horizon sits opposite him, not spending more than a passing glance at the pristine and luxurious office, clearly black and gold were Locke's colors. So, impressed yet? Locke asks, a cheeky grin on his lips. Nezu said you'd be impossible to impress. This facility, and your staff, are incredible, but I'm still not sure what exactly it does. That's why we're here, the fun part, Locke smiles. What do you remember about World War III? The long or short version? Horizon asks. Short version. Horizon relaxes back into his seat. After the advent of QUIRK's countries started an arms race, 5 years later war is declared after both America and Germany each invent entirely green and cheap alternative synthetic fuels using QUIRKs. Some militias took over Africa, and Europe tore itself apart. Go on. And the entire world nearly burned itself to the ground. Countries had to call off the war because of internal threats, the first wave of villains. Since then the entire world went from fighting each other to focusing everything on internal security. Hasn't been a single military skirmish between nations since, almost 200 years, Horizon shrugs. Did I mention what you wanted? Close enough, Locke says. During that war, Switzerland, like many nations, went bankrupt. We became scraps for everyone to pull apart, and because of our location, we didn't last a week. Our main resources before QUIRKs were salt, granite, sand, and marble. All cheaper than dirt because of early QUIRKs, Horizon says. Exactly. We had nothing, and until 50 years ago we were heavily dependent on our allies to help us, until. Swiss vault? Horizon asks. Exactly, Locke says excitedly. 50 years ago a mouse was discovered to have a QUIRK. Nezu. Yes, high spec, intellect beyond comprehension. He saw our situation, and on his campaign across the world to design systems and infrastructure, he came to us. With his consultation, we reformed our national constitution, mainly in the areas of taxes and privacy laws, and became the world's largest asset and capital holding company. Swiss vault. Switzerland, Locke corrects him. We have no villains. Our best military assets are within this mountain protecting the vaults and supercomputers, also designed by Nezu. Our business is money, and it's brought us out of that slump and into fortune once more. I see, Horizon brings a finger up to tap the chin of his visor. And how does it work exactly? In theory, it's actually quite simple, Locke says. Effectively speaking, we offer a subscription service. You open an account with us, we hold your assets and funds under the name of the Swiss government, insured by the Swiss government. And each year you pay either 50 million USD or 5% of your assets, whichever comes first. If the payment cannot be made or you cancel your account, then all assets are transferred back into your name. So if I get into any legal trouble, what are they going to do? You don't technically own those assets since it's on our name, not yours, Locke shrugs. They can't arrest Switzerland, and with Nezu's assistance we effectively have immunity so long as it's short of starting a war. But if my name is on it? No name, Locke shakes his head. Only a number and biometric security, which is protected by our privacy section of the Swiss constitution. Very smart, as expected of Nezu, Horizon says. We are a full-service company to act as the middleman, so to speak. If you require any service that can be legally purchased in your current country and don't want the hassle of sorting it out, we can take care of things for you. Want us to host a business for you? Sure. So long as it involves money we have no issue with such things, and the infrastructure for your own business has already been constructed. No wonder Nezu sent me here. You're exactly what I need, a way to move my assets without worrying about someone connecting my identities, Horizon says. Another thing protected by our laws, I assure you. The only way anyone will know that either of your identities are connected to us is if you inform them, Locke says. Right, Horizon nods. I guess now we've just got to get to reading the contract. Locke reaches down and rests a stack of nearly 500 pages on the desk. Horizon loudly groans, of course. -2 hours later. How are the tax laws this simple? Horizon asks, handing over the final page of the 400-page contract before storing his copy in his bag. Locke smiles and chuckles slightly. The office of many world leaders, at least the ones that can afford it, each have an account with us. We also only offer services to people or companies with a total value of at least $10 billion, you being the only exception. They have a very good reason to keep tax laws lenient, for us. Wow, Horizon nods. That's a pretty high bar of entry. Exclusivity and security demand it, Locke says as he sets the contract aside and reaches down, placing a black briefcase on the desk between both men. What's this? Your membership package. Locke opens the briefcase and turns it around to face Horizon. He pops it open to reveal a few objects. A sleek black laptop, smartphone, and a banking card, all with Horizon's logo already printed on them in blue. So Nezu told you about the logo, he chuckles, reaching down to pick up the phone. The moment he does it activates, and begins powering up. The biometrics were set to imprint when you touch it, Locke explains. Your account has officially become active and the bids for your services have already begun. Scanned me through my gloves, not bad, he sets the phone aside to inspect the cards. Those are directly connected to your account, they're made of platinum, and can be used with any bank globally, even the most obscure banks. And can only be used by your or any person you give access to your account. So only ever me, nice. I assume the laptop is the same thing. Exactly so. If any of these breaks or are reported lost we will contact you, or you may return here for a replacement. Good to know. Horizon puts the cards in his wallet and leaves the phone and laptop on the desk. And about the bids? Already connected to both your new devices, I recommend only using them for your business. We have one of the best cybersecurity systems in the world, best put it to use. You really do provide everything, so, shall we see how good business looks? Be my guest. Locke gestures to the closed laptop and leans back into his chair, watching Horizon open it up. With the screen facing away from him to protect Horizon's privacy, he only sees the blurry reflection in the visor as Horizon leans forward. Horizon couldn't believe what he was seeing, the list constantly changing, the leading bid increasing by the second as people fought for the top spot. This is a lot higher than I expected, and it's barely been a minute, Horizon says in awe. I may have changed it slightly, Locke confesses, causing Horizon's head to snap toward him. I did some data collection and found that the starting $10 million bid you set was too low. The clients felt insulted or as if they were being scammed, especially considering the services you claim to provide. So I changed the opening bid. $50 million was much more reassuring to them. Looking back to the screen, Horizon saw the highest bid at nearly $200 million and just shrugged. Well, I won't complain. Not one bit. Looks like I'm on the way to hitting the $10 billion requirement you have, huh? Locke chuckles, that would still make you account number 5,729 in terms of the pure liquid value. How many do you even have? 5,729, now that you've joined, Locke smiles cheekily. But this is good, I've informed all those account holders of your service and since Swiss Vault is the middleman, good business for you is good business for us. Horizon laughs at that, get your interests to line up with that of all the powerful people and you're well protected, very clever. Well, it was Nezu's idea, Locke admits. I'll be sure to thank him when I see him, but for now, it's time to get rich, I think I'll quite enjoy that. And I'll enjoy the business you bring us, Locke says as they shake hands, putting an end to this meeting. 12 months until UA. End chapter. Pat. Re in 5 chapters ahead Keanu_Eugene. 35 comments 0 vote. Chapter 016 May 2114. Discord. Web links. Pat. Re in 5 chapters ahead Keanu_Eugene. Chapter start. Within a makeshift operating room, there are 2 men. One lays face down, strapped to a soft massage table, his top bare, a rectangular hole running down the middle of his entire back, spine completely removed. Looking into the exposed cavity, the soft beats of his heart can be seen thumping away. His idle snores are soft and barely audible, and he feels nothing while the doctor works. At a small table away from the man sits Horizon, the man's spine lay on the metal table. The 5 bones at the base fractured and splintered, steadily being repaired and fused together. Unbecoming of the miraculous operation that was taking place, the room looked no different than a simple bedroom. The steady beats of the heart monitor were barely heard over Horizon's humming. His head bobs along to the tune in his mind as he casually performs the impossible. Horizon was wearing an outfit many would consider ill-suited to this usually bloody operation. Thankfully his quirk allowed him to remove only the spine. A simple white suit, his body glove showing the same color, black visor with blue eyes looking down at the spine as his hands moved about. Tweezers in one hand and a scalpel in the other, carefully binding bones and nerves back together. Thankfully his quirk allowed harmless and painless operations. As he finishes putting the final pieces of this bone jigsaw puzzle back together, Horizon can't help but let a few words of the tune in his head slip out. Best to, give me your loyalty. 'Cause I'm taking the world, you'll see. They'll be calling me. They'll be calling me royalty. He places a hand on the now fully reconstructed spine and focuses his energy. Booster shot, he mutters. He feels his stamina drain slightly as blue energy radiates from his body and flows into the spine. The cracks and fractures on each segment perfectly heals. He hears the heart monitor spike for a moment before it becomes stable again. As the assembly is complete, a clear rectangular casing forms around the spine, appearing and feeling as if it were made of jelly. Leaning back in his chair, he carefully picks up the spine, holding it delicately with both hands and rising from his seat, walking over to his patient. So this is what $3 billion can buy, huh? He chuckles to himself, placing the spine back into his patient as if he were assembling a basic puzzle. The spatial casing of the spine, the jelly-like rectangular shell, perfectly slides into the hole in his patient's back. And as the pieces fit together, a blue sheen shimmers slightly as the jelly reverts into flesh and muscle, as if the back was never tampered with. La shakes his head. One day I'll figure out how exactly that works, he mutters, placing his palm flat on the man's back. Scan. Remaining in physical contact, he focuses on the man, scanning him down to a cellular level, searching for any abnormalities. To search for such tiny abnormalities, he needs to remain in contact. If he were simply trying to rip out someone's spine, however, once his room is open, he simply has to scan them once by making physical contact, even through clothes. Locating such a normal and massive component would be easy. Then he could walk away while focusing on them, and when enough energy is gathered, simply touch them once more and rip it out. Unfortunately, the process would have to restart if the room closes. Needing to restart the entire surgery also wouldn't return the energy he committed to it. After nearly 5 minutes of searching, he perks up. Finding what he was looking for, La begins focusing his energy, feeling a slight strain as he tracked down all the medication in his patient. Mise, he commands. Raising his hand from the man's back, beneath his palm a small sphere of white clear liquid rises up, coma-inducing medication torn out of the man. Gah! The man startles awake, panicking and falling off the table. Horizon stares at him, not expecting such a lively response. The table falls over as the man scrambles to his feet, looking around with wide eyes, not able to make sense of any of this. Where am I? He demands, speaking perfect traditional Arabic. Horizon shakes his head and turns away, not paying the quirkless man any mind and moving to pack up his medical bag. As he begins sterilizing his equipment, however, a loud knock sounds from the double doors. We're coming in, 10 seconds. A worried voice booms out, also in perfect Arabic. Horizon pays it no mind and continues packing his things. By the time the doors are opened and 2 men with automatic rifles enter, just one step ahead from a robed elder gentleman, brown skin and a thick gray beard, head wrapped in his outfit draped in so much gold that it screamed, Middle Eastern royalty. The man and his guards all freeze at the sight of the prince, standing on his own and staring at them. The prince asks question after question, demanding to know what was going on. Yet his father simply walked up and embraced him, holding his son close as both guards watch in amazement. The reunion is interrupted when Horizon zips up his bag and takes out a notepad, writing something down quickly before turning to both men. This is Dr. Horizon, the man says to his son. He saved your life, please give me a moment with him, your mother and sisters are waiting for you upstairs. The man looks at his son once more and pats him on the shoulder, as if to check if this was a dream. What? The prince asks, completely confused. His father nods and pats his shoulder, gesturing to the guards, I will join you shortly, please, go see your mother. A minute later and only Horizon and the sheik are standing in the courtyard, his medical bag already at his side. Looking out at the garden, the man wasn't quite sure what to say, so he simply spoke his true thoughts. I had my doubts about you, at least until now. The sheik says. You threw that much money on something you had doubts about. He joins him in speaking Arabic, although with a heavy accent, not practiced enough to completely shake off the Japanese tones. Money is nothing, the man says. When I heard he was in a car accident, that he'd never wake up again, much less walk, it was the one time all my money and influence meant nothing. A dynasty that has controlled this region for hundreds of years. And we couldn't do anything. Horizon nods, money couldn't buy time. Until me. The man chuckles, well said. And that is exactly why when I saw a person that sold time, I jumped at the chance. After the first few clients, seems everyone wants more time. We're only human, the man shrugs. We may be the richest and most influential people in the world, but we all want more time. Your service will always do well. Better than I ever thought, honestly, Horizon admits. Time is the only thing we couldn't buy, so you can understand that we're quite eager, the man says. And this is the part where you ask me to stay here. The man can't help but laugh at that, so this happens often then. Every time, without fail. Everyone wants a miracle in their backyard. And you always refuse. Always, no matter the offer. The man raises a brow at that, I'm willing to bet that I can beat any offer you've ever seen. You can, but unfortunately I have a previous contract. Honorable in the face of great temptation, very respectable, the man strokes his beard and nods. My family would likely be unable to enter Japan when you settle your practice there next year, so I had to make an offer now. I completely understand, but unfortunately Japan has the one thing nobody else can get me, and no amount of money can replace. Horizon nods. I see. Then I wish you all the best, Doc. Horizon, the man corrects himself. Thank you, Shikimir. Horizon bows slightly. Now if you'll excuse me, I've never been to Dubai before, and as this is my first day, I've made reservations to quite a fine establishment for later tonight. -5 minutes later. Sitting in the back of an armored black SUV, Horizon leans back and scrolls through his phone. That's all the clients in this region, time for Eastern Europe. And I'll even have time for the Grand Prix before going to Paris, he muses. Glancing out the window to see the massive skyscrapers passing by as he arrives at his hotel. Putting his phone away, he exits the vehicle and walks in. The valet immediately moves to take his bag, which only had a few medical supplies within, while another leads him inside. They instantly recognized him by his visor, as expected when you rent the top suite of their hotel for the entire week. Checking in, he takes the elevator up to his suite and dismisses the staff, telling them that he'd like to rest from his flight into the country this morning. He ignores everything around him and simply walks to a particular window. Directly across the street is another hotel, smaller and less prestigious, but it had everything he needed. Leaving his bag and everything else behind, he opens up a room, large enough to reach across the street and into the other hotel. Shambles. He disappears, swapping places with a napkin of all things. He reappears in the opposite hotel, in the penthouse suite. Finally, he breathes a sigh of relief and removes his visor, walking around the suite to the bedroom where he changes his clothes. He packs his metal case with his Horizon gear as La Matani comes out once more. Okay, a week in Dubai was fun, but time to get the fuck out of here, lots of things to enjoy elsewhere. He says. Exiting the hotel is La Matani, who had been staying here for the entire week. He enters a limo, so over the top that nobody would ever expect him to be the mysterious doctor who the sheik believed to have only arrived that morning. And who wouldn't check out of the hotel for another 5 days. Perhaps paranoid, but he wouldn't take any chances with having these two people connected. When the valet places his bags in the limo, he arrives at the airport in only half an hour. Greeted by the sight of his very own private jet. Larger than the average passenger plane, as it was a double-decker, entirely refitted to be as luxurious yet functional as possible. Painted black with gold accents, and the word, Matani, on the side in case anyone was curious about who owned it. La steps out of the limo to be greeted by the flight staff at the ramp. Taking a deep breath, he looks around. Limo. Private jet. Private hangar. I love being rich. End chapter. Pat. In 5 chapters ahead, Keanu_Eugene. Next chapter. Enjoy this book so far? Sign in to find out more. Sign in later. Chapter 009, Negotiations Point. 3.